G'day ladies and gents, and welcome to the patch 1.101 dev server, where the AIM-7s are still broken. Yes, that's right, it hasn't changed from the dev server sneak peek. We still do have balked AIM-7s, and honestly, I don't really know. I don't know how to feel about it. From the stat card, the AIM-7E, it has an 18G overload, and the AIM-7D, yes, that's right, we have two variants, and they'll appear on different planes. They have a 15G overload. So for those of you that were going to say that, oh, it's going to have a massive overload, it turns out it doesn't. Now, that overload is also a misleading number, so it kind of doesn't matter. Basically, these missiles are big and fat, so kind of treat them all like an R530. Now, take note here that the F4 Phantom is now one of the most heavily laden planes in the entire game, carrying bombs, radar-guided missiles, IR-guided missiles, autocannons, and flares. It's kind of crazy. Another thing to note is that the radar-guided missiles need to fire first. Basically, in every situation except the F-104S, you will fire your radar-guided missiles first, which kind of sucks, and I'd really like a way to allocate or switch to, say, my dogfighting missiles or my interceptor missiles, or, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, so the Americans and the Allies basically get themselves some AIM-7s. What do the Soviets get? R3Rs. Yeah, it's pretty shit. They're basically R3Ss, but with a radar head instead. So, yeah, it's kind of yikes, but you'll see in a bit that, honestly, I don't really think they're going to be that impactful anyway. I highly doubt that they will. Anyway, let's have a look at each individual plane's loadouts, where it sits at what tier, and how many they all get. Starting off with the F4E, it gets the AIM-7Es at rank 4. The F4EJ gets the AIM-7D at rank 3 and the AIM-7E at rank 4, with a fairly substantial loadout, giving it a wide variety of loadouts. The FGR-2 gets AIM-7s as well, and is able to fire them with the AIM-9Ds, and so does the F4C. So, what do the Frenchies get? Now, I did mention the R530, and the R530E is what we have in game already, and that sits as a tier 3 modification in front of the R530, which is the radar-guided version. It's pretty incredible, honestly. Basically, treat them all as if it's going to be an R530, and you're going to be fine. The SMT, like I said, R3R at rank 3 underneath the R60s, which is kind of interesting. It's kind of clear that the R60 is the better one. Anyway, moving on to the F104, which gets the AIM-7E as a rank 3 in front of the AIM-9B. Wow. So, one other thing that's not related to radar-guided missiles is the Su-7BKL, which gets 6 Tiny Ivans. Holy fuck, that is going to be a really, really nice ground pounder for 10.0. Anyway, well, you can see here that the sort of radar guidance is going to be interesting. Now, moving on, how does that actually hold up? So we can't test the AIM-7, we can test the R530 by testing the R530E, so the R3R is the only one that's really left in the dark that we can test. And as you can see, it kind of gets distracted. I'm not really sure what that is. It could be a bug, but the R3R isn't really that great. I'm starting to think that we're got a little bit of a Papega on our hands. Anyway, the R3R does kind of work nicely against bombers and does work nicely in an intercepting role. So how does it work against fighters? Well, it's got to be flying in a straight line, basically. I would still stick to the R3s. As you can see, that little sort of spool up time is pretty good as well. And I'm firing at basically a vertical. I'm not sure if this one hits. One of them hits, one of them doesn't, and I can't remember which one. But the range isn't amazing, and nor is the turning ability. So honestly, you might as well stick with the R60s. I think Gaijin have played it fairly safe and have gone for some pretty, I don't want to call them harmless options, just in case they get a massive tweak and end up being humongous chungus missiles. But they're tied to the radar, so I think we're going to have a little bit of balance there. So you can't run away into the sun, but at the same time, if a plane has really crappy avionics, like the Mirage doesn't have amazing avionics, nor does the MiG-21, you're going to start to find some difficulties. And of course, if you are diving on an opponent, you will also find some difficulties. Note here that whilst it does travel in a straight line for a little bit, it will find its way after I think it's a kilometer or so, and as long as you still have that target slaved, it will still come in at extreme angles. Anyway, what else is there that is kind of nice about the new aircraft? Well, we have the Nanchang Q5. Unfortunately, it's a bit of a dud. It doesn't have a great array of unguided rockets. It does have an okay array of unguided bombs, and unfortunately, it gets NS-23s, or at least the Chinese version of the NS-23. It still feels kind of like a MiG-19, and I'm surprised it doesn't have any radar in that nose. You'd kind of expect, maybe it's just a work-in-progress thing for the dev server, but yeah, it definitely does still feel like a MiG-19, and you know what, I'll take it anyway, because China kind of needs some stuff that is homemade. Anyway, we also have these cute things that are falling off my plane right now. These are mines. Yes, have a look at that. That is cute as. I love this change. It just floats in the water there and just waits for a ship to sail over it. I love it. I think it's a great addition, and I can't wait to try it out. Another thing is kind of novel. I don't understand why this is in the game, but have a look at this. So, yeah, no damage to critical parts, but that's what a Hellfire does to your pea shooter. Now we have protection analysis, which is kind of weird. And of course, we have ourselves the P-47 Razorback. This is a fantastic addition. It basically does feel like a regular P-47D, though. I don't really know. It's kind of good to have in the game. It doesn't really fill out any holes, but it is one of the things that has been widely requested by the War Thunder community. It still feels like a good old P-47, still flies like one, still shoots like one. It's a thumbs up from me, and we get a British one in the premium tech tree as well, which is kind of nice. So, what else do we have to consider here? Of course, one last thing I'm going to show you with the Mirage is how not to fire your air-to-air missiles. The Mirage does have those R530s, of course, but I honestly don't see them as a hugely impactful thing in the game. It does have a wide sort of scope, but you don't really use that because, as you can see, it's basically down to the missile's ability to turn. Honestly, overall, I would probably still stick with the IR missiles unless you're in a Phantom. Maybe then, but you do lose a bit of dogfighting capability because you have to use all four of those first. So maybe if you've got an ability to select them, then sure. But if not, then nah. Anyway, ladies and gents, thank you very much for watching. Take care, and I'll catch you next time. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention as well, we have a Sepicat Jaguar in the files, which is kind of, holy shit man, that is massive. So stay tuned I guess for the next dev server.